Alright, hello and welcome back to another POE video. So I've been enjoying the Ancestor League quite a bit, and I've been really enjoying using the new tattoos that have been introduced into the game. They are basically a consumable that replaces your travel nodes on your tree with different cool stats. There are a few different types of tattoos. So there's the very basic tattoo that just replaces a small attribute passive skill with something else. So this one gives you +4 all attributes instead of the 10 of a specific one normally. There's other really cool ones like a bunch of the eye socketed here, so you can get 1% reservation per travel node, and you can get like 1% aura effect per travel node. There's skill defect duration, there's a bunch of different stuff. Then there are slightly more powerful nodes that replace 30 attribute notables. So you know, these nodes right here. You can only have one of these on your build, but they give a very powerful effect. So you see that this one gives also on hit, which is obviously very, very good. And you know, other stats like int and strength have different ones as well, and those are very good. And then there are some more specified ones. So there are these mechanical tattoos that have different requirements to them. So this one right here requires maximum of 1 adjacent passive skill allocated. So I think the idea of this is that you basically spec like an extra point that just goes out into nothing like this, and that would keep it activated because you only have 1 adjacent passive point allocated. So that works like that. So that's the way you get those active, and they give you maximum cold res and stuff like that, which is very cool. And then there are really powerful ones which have a really big requirement to them. So stuff like this, where you have to have 7 adjacent passive points allocated. Like this is quite restrictive in that there are only a few spots on the tree where this is even possible. So there's stuff like, this is a spot where you can do it. There's spots like over here where you can do it 7. So like this is a spot where you can allocate 7. So yeah, it's a big cost, but they also generally have very big effects. Like the int one gives you 8% CDR, the dex one gives you an extra projectile, which is very strong, and the strength one I believe increases your maximum recovery per second by quite a bit. Okay, so those are tattoos, but there are some different cool things we can do with these because seeing as they just replace the passive point on the tree, they also stay after you unallocate them. So it's basically just a full replacement of the node. And there's some really cool things and interactions we can do with other jewels that interact with the passive tree. And I figured to go over some of them right here. So in order to do that, let's jump over into POB. Okay, so here we are in POB. Now let's look at what we can do with these tattoos, shall we? So the first thing I want to mention is Unnatural Instinct. Unnatural Instinct is a jewel that you can allocate in a jewel slot, and it makes it so that all the small passive points and a small radius, all the small passives you have allocated in this radius do nothing. However, you get all the bonuses from the other unallocated small passives in this radius. So this interacts with tattoos. If you have replaced any of the small passive points in this radius with a tattoo, you get that tattoo ability from the Unnatural Instinct, obviously. And it also importantly works with the mechanical tattoos, or some of them rather, with the Maxers one specifically, that require you to have maximum 1 allocated adjacent skill point. So because you can replace a passive point on the tree and then unspec it, and it stays, you can just have all these unspecced. So you can see I've replaced 3 strength nodes here with 3 of the mechanical tattoo that gives +1 to maximum virus, and then I've just unspec'd them, so they're just all here. Because the wording on the mechanical tattoos is that it's up to a maximum of 1 adjacent passive point allocated. When you have nothing allocated, it counts because it's up to 1, right? So that means that just basically in the radius of Unnatural Instinct, you can put as many of these maximum res nodes as you can just fit in, and you get all of them. So here's a spot where you can get 3. I'm sure there's spots where you can get a bunch more, and that's very cool. Unfortunately, due to the wording, you can't use this with the 7 passive tattoos, mechanical tattoos, because it's not up to 7, obviously, so it wouldn't actually work. But with these max res nodes, it does work, and obviously you get all the other tattoos as well. So Unnatural Instinct, quite strong. Another interaction is with Impossible Escape. So if you're unaware of what that does, is that Impossible Escape rolls a random keystone. This is a debug one for POB, that gives you every single one. But when you get one dropped, it rolls a random keystone on it, and then within this radius of the keystone, you can allocate any passive point you want. There are a few keystones on the tree, which if you use an Impossible Escape on, you get some really cool interactions with tattoos. The most notable one I've noticed is this Supreme Ego spot right here. So if you have an Impossible Escape that gives you Supreme Ego, you can take these 4 spots right here, and because of the wording you have again up to maximum 1, you can have basically all 4 of these maximum cold res nodes active at the same time, which gives you just straight up +4 max cold res, which is a very powerful effect. And obviously you can still allocate anything else you want, like you get charisma here, and like it's just a good Impossible Escape to begin with. So this is a very nice spot to get some res for it. I'm sure there are plenty of other spots as well for Impossible Escapes where you can get some real juicy stuff like this, but this is the one that I've noticed. Another jewel that has been introduced this league is the Warrior's Tail jewel. So this has a medium radius. Let me actually just disable the possible escape, so we don't have to get all these circles. So this jewel has a medium radius, and all the tattoos within this medium radius gets double their effect. So 100% increase effect of tattoos and radius. So obviously this is quite strong. If you're just hitting regular small attribute tattoos, it's not that big of a deal. You get like, 4 or 5% more reservation or whatever. Like, it's not a huge deal. However, if you can hit a spot where it can hit some of the mechanic tattoos, it gets really interesting. And this is the spot where I've noticed where you can do some really degenerate stuff here. So what you can do is here, if you notice, this and this, both of these have 7 or more adjacent passives. Here you can allocate these 7, and then that works for that. And this actually has even more than 7 that you can allocate. But yeah, you can just take these, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now that's active. So what you can then do is you can place these with the Mechanic tattoo for int. So this cooldown tattoo gives you 8% increased cooldown recovery rate, and obviously the cost is you have to have 7 allocated. So based on here, with these 2 points, you get 16%, and then if you use this Warrior's Tail jewel, you now double that, so you get 32% CDR from these 2 jewels, which for certain builds can be very strong. And most of these nodes that you have to allocate for these are actually not bad on their own, so yeah, it's pretty nice. It's a very powerful effect. I'm sure there are plenty of other spots where you can do similar things to this. Like if you can find one of these 2 spots over on the deck side of the tree, and you can fit in +2, you can fit in 2 of the Mechanic tattoos that give you +1 proj. That sounds pretty crazy. I'm not sure if there's any spots like that. Like, you might be able to do something here. There's definitely 1/7 in this area, but yeah, I'm sure there's other stuff you can do, but this is the main one that I noticed would be really good. But yeah, so that's another thing you can try it in POB to see if you can find a really good spot for it. Now, normally when you allocate these tattoos, they come at a cost, right? Because you are replacing your travel nodes, which give you most of the attributes for your build, and you do need some of these attributes to equip your items and gems. So that usually comes at a cost. So usually you have to replace those notables that you removed with like suffixes on your gear or something like that, which does come at a cost because suffixes on gear can be very powerful. But what you can also do, if you don't want to do that, you can use the Timeless Keystone Supreme Ostentation. What this does is it gives you no inherent bonuses from attributes, so that's a bit of a downside. So if your build really needs those, that's maybe a deal breaker, but it makes you able to ignore all attribute requirements completely. And you get this by using an elegant hubris that commemorates Caspero. So you need this to be Caspero. Then all the keystones in the radius of the elegant hubris turn into Supreme Ostentation. So what this does is it gives you, obviously, you don't need attributes anymore, so you can replace every single thing in your tree that gives you attributes with tattoos. So you can see, actually, that's literally what I've done on my character. So that's super cool and super strong. So yeah, that's on my character. I think the required attributes is like an equivalent of 22 travel nodes I'm gaining from just taking this keystone, which means 22 potential tattoos, which is like 22 mana reservation or 22 aura effect, just for this one keystone. So it's yeah, it's very, very powerful and very cool. So I think Supreme Ostentation is better this league than it's ever been before. I think it's never really been a bad keystone, and like Mjolnir builds and stuff like that have used it in the past, and other obviously really attribute intensive builds use it. But now I think every single build could use it, and it's very cool, especially since Elegant Hubris is not a bad timeless jewel to begin with. You can get some really juicy stuff with it. All right, so those are some of the few interactions I've noticed with tattoos. I'm sure there's going to be plenty more discovered as the league progresses, and yeah, that'll be very cool. I've really been enjoying tattoos. I think they're a bit fiddly to tinker around with. Like, I'm not sure. Kind of doubt they're going to go base game after this league, but for now they're very fun to play around with and obviously very powerful. So some very cool things here. If you found any other tricks that I haven't mentioned here, I'll happily read some of the comments with them, and we can talk about it there. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll have more videos from this league in the future. I have been quite enjoying myself. I think this is quite a good one.